alongside my good friend, Rabbi Abraham Cooper, and together we've just written this book that was always an important book about what's happening in Nigeria. It's called The Next Jihad, but it seems even more important today, given what's in the news. Even as we speak, the Nigerian president spoke just moments ago to the entire country about unrest in the largest city. And yet what we are shining a light on in the Next Jihad is a challenge that Nigeria has been facing for over a decade. And so we wanted you to hear firsthand from those who've been most affected. And our guest of honor in our conversation this evening is one of those. And even before we actually started broadcasting, I mean, we were just chatting amongst ourselves, and one of the things that I said to Jennifer, whom we call Grace in our book, which I think is fitting of her personality, is that she is the star of this conversation. And I'm sorry it's for this reason, but you need to hear from people who have been directly affected by what's happening in Nigeria. And we are pleased to be doing this together with ICON, the International Committee of Nigeria. One of its co-founders, Stephen Enada, is with us. And I want to turn the conversation over to Stephen, and then he will, after making a few comments, will introduce Jennifer. Then I will speak along with the rabbi, and then we have a few questions that we've collected. If you have any additional questions, if you want to put them in the comments underneath this video, whatever we don't answer here in our conversation, we'll get back to you afterwards. We might send you a note and ask for your email address or phone number. But this is a very, very critical issue in our world, and we're very, very pleased to have Stephen kick us off here. So Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Reverend Johnnie Moore. Hello, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Stephen Enada. I'm one of the co-founders of International Committee on Nigeria, ICON. Our organization exists because right now, terrorism and ethno-religious violence threaten the stability of Africa's most important nation. We are actively working to raise awareness and build collaborative partnerships to address religious liberty here in the US and violations of religious freedom abroad. We are specifically focused on Nigeria, which is reportedly becoming the biggest killing ground of Christians in the world due to attacks by Boko Haram, one of the deadliest terrorist groups in the world, and Fulani militants. While we are here to raise awareness about the killings that are taking place at the hands of these terrorist groups, why the Nigerian government turns a blind eye, we cannot ignore what is happening in the streets today. Over the last 2 weeks, widespread protests against police brutality have turned violent as Nigerian police have used excessive force to silence demonstrators. It's been alleged the Nigerian government even hired armed attackers to break up the protests as they gain worldwide attention, injuring and even killing innocent people. Today, Nigerian President Buhari took the national airwaves to deny these allegations, saying he protects the lives of all Nigerians. Well, we know this is not true. Based on our findings, we can credibly say that over the last 2 decades, nearly 100,000 Nigerians have been killed at the hands of terrorists. These attacks have been getting more frequent and aggressive under the Buhari administration. Some want to dismiss them as simple land disputes between farmers and herders, but our data clearly shows that that is not the case. There has been a concerted effort by Boko Haram Fulani militant to eradicate Nigeria of its Christian population. We fear that if the US government stands by and allows these atrocities to continue, the entire West African region will fall into disarray and we'll see a genocide like the world hasn't witnessed since Rwanda. Urgent action is needed, which is why ICON has been working tirelessly with the US State Department on behalf of the victims and vulnerable people in Nigeria to ask the US to to take formal action by sending a special envoy to the Lake Chad region of Nigeria. In fact, ICON recently polled voters in North Carolina and found the overwhelming majority of voters are aware of persecution in Nigeria, and two-thirds are more likely to vote for President Trump if he sends a special envoy to Nigeria to address the issue. In partnering with the US government, we have the ability to stop the killings. We must do all we can to protect the lives and religious freedoms of these innocent Christians in Nigeria. This evening, I would like to introduce you to Jennifer Samuel, who is a health worker. She was abducted and released by Boko Haram earlier this year. She was held captive for months before eventually escaping. I will let her share her story. Jennifer, thank you for joining us to tell your story today.
Thank you for having me. My name is Samuel Jennifer. I am a nurse midwife, and I hail from Plateau State in Nigeria. So I started work in Maiduguri, that's a Borno State, Monguno precisely, with an international INGO in the year 2017. I was being given the job as a midwife there. So I've been working 2017, 2018, not until 2019, December 22nd, early in the morning on my way home from Monguno. I was going to go to Maiduguri, then to Jos for my Christmas break. En route, I think at around 8 o'clock, 8, we were stopped by armed Boko Haram members, although they said they were soldiers of Caliphate, not Boko Haram. So they were holding guns, weapons, with armored vehicles. They had already stopped vehicles that were passing by, and they had already picked some people towards the bush with them. So they stopped, checked us, asked us for our ID cards, told us they look at us from the way we dress, asked names, where we're going to, and they happened to tell me to move towards the bush. On getting towards the bush, I met other people that were there, one other female, she was my colleague, and then other men. There, they were now still asking about our ID cards, where we were from. Then the question of religion came, what religion we were. So I answered for myself. I said I was a Christian. They started laughing. I said I was from Plateau State. Most of them were like, who is the person from Plateau State? They wanted to see. So they kept on asking questions. They asked the men what jobs they were doing, what brought them to Monguno. They collected their ID cards, and then some amongst the men, I don't know what criteria they used. They told them to drop from the vehicle, told them to kneel down. They collected and checked their ID cards, took them towards the roadside because we were in the bush, and they shot them. I think around 4 to 5 of them, they shot them dead. Not just one bullet, but multiple times. So after then, they now spoke to the other people that they gathered around. They spoke to them. I don't know what they told them because I was so close by, and then they told them to drive off. Then they drove off with us towards the bushes. So we left there, I think around 9:30, and we made a stop on the road. It was all through the bushes. Where we stopped, they were Fulani rearing their cows there. When they saw them coming, they did not say anything to them. They just allowed them to stay there and relax. We now told them we wanted to ease ourselves. They escorted us to where we eased ourselves. They offered us water. They offered us sweets. So from there, we continued the journey. We got to where they wanted to take us to at 5 p.m. Nigerian time. They took us around 9, and we got there by 5. So when we got there, they separated the men from us, kept on asking us questions to verify who we were, because apparently they searched our bags. So they had our forms of identification to know if we were telling them who we really were. So someone came, they called us one after the other to identify ourselves and say whatever it was we were doing. So we did that. They now took the guys away first before they now came and took us in one of the armored vehicles. They took us in and dropped us by the gate. We were there. They had already surrounded the place. It looked as if it was a military base before, but I don't know, it was just ransacked and anyhow. So from there they now took us to a room where I and the other lady stayed. So they brought raw food for us. They brought spaghetti, they brought palm oil, they just brought raw food and firewood, gave us water in a jerry can, told us to cook, and we should do that fast before nightfall because they wouldn't want any lights to be seen. Helicopters were passing at around that time, going to and fro, I think, searching for us. So we cooked. They came, told us not to make noise. They gave us lights. We should stay indoors. We should not on the light at night. That was where we slept. The next morning, they brought the men to join us. Then I think one of their bosses, I don't know, but he was not there on the day they took us. He was big, huge. They came and then they started asking us questions again. They asked the men first. They now took them away. They now brought us out from the room. He was still asking same questions. Where were we from? What jobs we were doing? What religions were we? And all those. So they had our ID cards. Whatever we tell them, they try to verify with those ID cards they had. So we gave our own explanations to them. So they now took us out and they recorded a video. They actually made me to speak because they believed I was more literate than all the others. So they said I should tell the government and the Christian leaders in Nigeria that if they don't adhere to their demands, that the fate of Leah, Grace, and Alice will be our fate. That was what they said we should say. And then I asked what are those demands they want, that the Nigerian government should release their people that they captured, I think when they raided them. So we recorded that. Afterwards, they brought us back to their camp. So they now took us to a different location. We were now separated from the men. We didn't see them again. They took us to a different room in the same camp. There we stayed like for 6 to 7 days. From there, they took us on a canoe to, I think, another different part of their camp. Meanwhile, one of them told us that, yes, that this is Lake Chad. We are in Lake Chad. If we don't know, this is Lake Chad, he actually told us. So we went to the new camp. There they made a new place, I think a new compound for us. They made it with aluminum roofings and wood. So they made it, I think for us, I don't know, it was new. Everything there was new. They gave us mats. They gave us mats and blankets. So we actually asked for mosquito nets because we don't know because they had told us to ask them for anything we want, they would give us. That was what they said. And it so happened that one of the men, he told us that when they took us, because they usually have reasons for capturing people, that they might want to capture you to enslave, they might want to capture you to exchange for something, or to kill you. But it so happened that when they captured us, they wanted to exchange us for something. That was what he said. So he now said that in my own state, they were laughing that most of them wanted to see the Plateau girl, because they said in my own state that they heard that we are killing their people, we burnt their wives and children and things like that. And I told him I don't know anything as such that has happened in my own state. So they kept us there. So he will come to talk to us at some point. He will assure us that we might end up being with them. We will be their slaves because they have the right to keep us as slaves. The moment we enter their entrampment, we are their slaves. So they can do whatever they want to do with us. Like, I actually told them I was married. So they had the rule that if you're a married person, it's when you see your first menstruation with them that they can have their sexual desires achieved with you. But if you are single, then it can be immediately. So that was what I think bought me some little time. He was now asking, when will my menstruation come and all those things. So I kept on praying. We kept on praying. We were praying and fasting. From the second day we were abducted, we started praying and fasting 6 to 6. So while we're there, he attempted to touch me and also to have sexual contact with me. But I kept on insisting, because from the very beginning, he told us that for a married person, you have to see your menstruation. So when it got to the point that he was putting more pressure on me, I had to tell him, you were the one who said till I see my menstruation and I haven't seen it. So you shouldn't break your rule. It is your rule, not mine. So I think those things kept pushing him back. And he kept on asking me questions about HIV and all those things. Apparently, they heard about them, but they are not really sure how it was. And they are mostly young children. Like, I think I'm even older than most of them. I actually am older than most of them. Those that are like my age mates are few. They are not much. Their children, their family, they are all there. And one other thing that one of them told us was, the government know we are here, but they cannot do anything because they know we are fighting for Allah. That was what they said, that they know that we are here, but they cannot do anything because we are fighting for Allah. They kept on talking to us to why Islam is the best religion, why they think we should convert. At the end of the day, we are going to die if we are still saying we are Christians, that Jesus Christ didn't die, that it was exchanged with somebody and all those stuff. So I happened to interact with them while they were, because I watched the Christian movies. Mostly I watched the Christ movies. So I just finished watching like not up to 2 weeks before the abduction. So whenever they are bringing up stories, I try to also say my own part. And then I realized that most of their stories align with what the Bible is saying. It's like when they're talking about Moses, it's almost the same thing, but at the end, it will be changed with something else. When they're talking about David, all those things. So I happened to interact with them. At the end of the day, they thought I was going to convert. They thought I was going to be a Muslim. Why didn't I? And I said, when God talks to me and tells me that Islam is the best religion, I think by then I will. But for now, I'm okay with Jesus Christ didn't do anything to me. He died for my sins. So why would I just betray him and stuff like that? So I think we spent 3 weeks, 2 days with them. I happened to meet Alice there. So Alice, well, she said they are all doing fine. She said Grace and Leah are all doing fine. And we were just there. We stayed with her 2 days. We were with Alice 2 days. They changed her name to Halima. So she's like part of them, just hoping we keep on praying and something will happen.
And Jennifer, do you want to tell us, I mean, you're here, you're not captive anymore. So maybe you want to give us a little bit of that story as well, how you were freed. And also for the sake of people that are listening, when Jennifer speaks of Alice and Grace and Leah, these are other young women that have been kidnapped and held captive, and these are well-known young women who've been subject of global fascination and concern. But Jennifer, I mean, one of the things we said to you when we met with you in Nigeria is that we were amazed that there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories like your story, but not everyone was fortunate to get out. And so I think people are wondering why you're here now. Of course, it's the grace of God, but God used some enterprising people as well. And so maybe you want to say a little bit of that, and then I'll ask Rabbi Cooper to say what's on his mind, and then I'll say a few things before some questions. But how did you get free?
Okay, the thing is, they said most things, most information people have about them is the bad one. They said they are bloodsuckers, they are what, but they want us to know that they are also good people. I don't know if they wanted to use us to communicate. I don't really know, but they were like, they are also human. And one thing that baffled me was, if you were human, why would you now kill those people you killed in the process of capturing us? And also, when we were trying to, we thought because he was elderly, he was going to be more human than the young ones, because apparently I think they were being told what to do. When we said they killed people, like they shot them, and he was like, did they shoot them in our presence? We were like, no, at a distance. He said how he wished they shot them in our presence so that we would see. They wanted to traumatize us. They wanted us traumatized. But God being great, it was at a distance. If we did not even look, we wouldn't have even known what was going on. So they wanted us to be traumatized. Well, apparently they came, they recorded another video for us to specify the date we were being captured, where we were being captured, and we should mention the same date that they recorded that video. Now, we did not know who, or we did not know who was even in talks with them, or if there were any talks ongoing. What he will actually come to tell us, the elderly, maybe God wants us to be with them or not. At some point he said, are we sure of the information we gave? Like, because we actually told them, and the other lady, like I said, she was my colleague. She's a hygiene where we work, so I know her. So we actually said we're daily workers with the organization we work with. We're not their contracted staff. So they don't have any say in whatever affairs concerning us. We know that it's only the government, because we are Nigerians. That was what we told them. And then maybe the camp chairman or camp president. That was what we told them. So they came and they were like, are we sure of the information we gave them? We confirmed the informations and all. So sometime he will come and say, maybe at the end of the day, we are going to be with them. He was even saying, what name is he going to even give me? And all those things, they are going to keep us. So it just so happened that he came on day and told me that I should come over to his house in the evening for him to continue his sexual exploit, assault. Now, then he now later came and now said, because that day when he said it, I actually spoke back at him. I told him that nothing is going to happen. By God's grace, nothing is going to happen. And it's like I'm devil. I said, no, it's not like that, but I know that God will not allow it. He will not allow you to touch me. So he now later came and now said that they are taking us to a different place. We didn't even know we were going to leave that place. He said they are taking us to a different place. That he's sorry for if I thought he had interest in me, but he was only trying me because I said that a woman can actually control herself if she's not with her husband. She doesn't necessarily have to sleep with other people. So because I told him that, so he was trying me. So that he's sorry if I felt as if he was trying to assault me. Then they came, took us, we still went on another boat to a different location. That was where we now met Alice. We stayed there 2 days. They now came, picked us in a vehicle with 3 other guys that we were abducted on the same day with. We did not know about the others. We were all 9. We were 9 in number that were taken. There was 5 of us that were released on that fateful day. They took us in a vehicle. We traveled a journey of 24 hours. We slept on the way to another different part of Borno State. We were around Lake Chad. They took us to around Mogumeri. And it was around that place that they handed us over to a man in a car. I don't even remember his name. So he took us to the DSS office. It was from there they now contacted our various organizations, and then they came and picked us.
Rabbi?
Wow. Well, let me just make a quick comment for anyone who's never met people from Nigeria. You just heard Stephen and Jennifer. It's one of the amazing things when you talk about human rights problems. So Nigeria is a vital country. It's a large country with great people. You've met now 2 of them with the structure of democracy, and pretty much you, as visitors, you can go and do as you please. So it's hard to detect unless you're looking to understand the reality, how everyday people like us are in fear for their lives, primarily because of their faith. And you have, in many ways, unfortunately, a failed system in which you have a judiciary. When they catch someone, on the few occasions they arrest, they never, at the end of the day, really stay in jail for the appropriate amount of time. There is no justice. There is scant safety. And what I think, I'm not an expert in Nigeria, I spent less than a week there, but watching now what's going on in the streets of the world's most populous city, Lagos, and listening to, to the complaints, it's because the leadership has not stepped up to utilize their system to take care of their citizens. So whether you want to call it criminal activity, kidnapping, terrorism, the bottom line is there are so many people being killed, innocent individuals. And as an American, and as so happens as a Jew, an Orthodox rabbi at that, feel very, very strongly that the combination of my faith values and the fact that I'm lucky enough to have a US passport means that as an American, we're empowered to respectfully but powerfully impact and help change this reality. The last US administration refused basically to acknowledge the theological aspect of what was going on. And we just saw that Hillary Clinton spoke out against the violence that just took place. But as we know, she didn't do very much when she was Secretary of State. The bottom line is whoever is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th, whether they're sensitive to the concerns of Christians or they're worried about our geopolitical situation or about 1 million kids on the streets of a country that could become easy cannon fodder for terrorists, then whoever's sitting in that seat in the Oval Office must take on this issue. And I think American citizens of all faiths, but especially Christians, especially churches, are more powerful to affect positive change than they realize.
Thank you, Rabbi Cooper. I think some people that are watching us are probably wondering how we ended up in Nigeria, and I'll let Rabbi comment on that in a moment. I'll just say to that question, it was Rabbi Cooper that encouraged me, this Christian activist, that we needed to get to Nigeria and get to Nigeria quickly. I've been paying attention to the country, and a few years ago, I sent a researcher to the country to document some of what was going on. But the rabbi and I, as Christian and Jewish from 2 different parts of the country and 2 different generations, we have forged a passion around promoting religious freedom and addressing human rights issues around the world, and have been sort of aside from friends and allies on that front, believing that there's a role for religious leaders in this conversation. And Rabbi Cooper said, we got to go, and we tried to go, and it was complicated to go, and eventually, with the good Lord's help, we made it over there, and it was our last international trip before the pandemic shut down the world. And the rabbi and I both travel all around the world a lot throughout the year. But it was a gift of God that we were able to get there before the world shut down, because over the last 6 months, the situation has gotten worse. And And the issue that's sort of capturing the global media attention now about the protest in Lagos, I mean, that is on top of everything else taking place in the country. And what we've tried to do in the book, which is called The Next Jihad, is to tell the story of what's happening, but more importantly, tell the stories of those who've been most affected, to lay out this sort of geopolitical reality and to look at the past. I mean, 10 years ago, this situation started. I mean, there was an opportunity to address it early on. There was a reticence to even call Boko Haram a terrorist organization in 2013 and 2014. In fact, the State Department was fighting intensely against calling it a terrorist organization. There's a presidential debate tonight. It's apparently there's not a foreign policy emphasis in the debate. But I mean, one of the questions that I would have, and I think Joe Biden needs to answer, is that in his time, as the vice president, why did his administration resist designating Boko Haram a terrorist organization? One of the things that we've come to realize, I think, is that there's this big debate over causation. So why is this happening in Nigeria? And some scholars and experts and politicians want to say this has nothing to do with religion. It's just a battle between tribes or a competition over natural resources. Other people say this is exclusively about religion. We've been very precise in the book. When we talk about the Fulani attacking villages, we say it's Fulani militants. Okay, the Fulani it's the largest tribe in Africa. There's 17 million alone in Nigeria. We're not talking about all Fulani, but we are saying that there are militant Fulani that are targeting Christian villages. We talk about Islamic leaders like an imam that hid Christians inside of his mosque when militants came, and this 80-year-old imam who was given an award by the State Department in the last year decided to stand up for the Christians in his community. We give the whole picture. But one of the conclusions that we draw in our analysis is that all of this energy being wasted over why this is happening is an excuse by some to not do anything. And this is a 5-alarm fire. It demands action now. And we're not talking about military intervention from the United States. We're not talking about any of these things. What we are talking about is a call to the leaders of the largest country in Africa, the largest economy in Africa, a democratic country, to do more and to do it now. I mean, the fundamental responsibility of any government in the world is protecting its citizens. There's nothing greater than this. And when you can't travel on a road without fear of being pulled over by a terrorist, and in some of what we documented, I mean, stuff that's in the public domain, cell phones being found that were in the possession of militants and terrorists that had the cell phone numbers inside of them of police officers, people in the government, of countless cases where prosecution was delayed or never happened at all. It is incredibly clear that the government of Nigeria can be doing more, and they must do more. And if they don't, as Rabbi Cooper rightly said, whoever's sitting in the Oval Office for the next 4 years, I'm afraid that one of the issues that they're going to face is an increasingly perilous situation in the largest country on the continent of Africa, with the 10th largest oil reserves in the world, and a escalating human rights catastrophe. So we wrote the book mainly to tell the stories of the victims, to help people who don't necessarily understand what's going on have a better sense of it. They'll learn facts like the terrorists in Nigeria have killed more Christians than ISIS did in Iraq and Syria. They killed more Christians than ISIS did at the height of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. And then we finished the book with the moral imperative to act, drawing upon both of our faiths, calling people to do something about it and to do something about it now. Rabbi, anything to add before we take a few questions?
Well, I just want to say that, we had a chance to interact with a few dozen survivors. Each individual, every story was riveting, and it proved to me on the ground that we were right to insist that we had to come and witness, put a human face on otherwise statistics that we would just read in CNN International or BBC or Fox. 21 killed, 17 killed. And the only way to really break that kind of deflection, if you will, because you read it and you go, gee, that's too bad, and you go on to the rest of whatever else you're doing. That's what I learned when I visited the Soviet Union in a previous lifetime of the 20th century, is that you have to create a platform and give voice to people who cannot reach the outside world. We're not talking about the Soviet Union. We're not talking about communist China. We're talking about a democracy in which this is all happening before us. So instinctively, I understood if we could go, those nameless faces and silenced voices would show up. And here we are again, a reunion with Jennifer. We met many people like Jennifer. And I'm just thinking aloud here. I know people want to know, what can we do about it? And again, as a Jew, I don't attend church, and rabbis don't go to church services, but I do know enough traveling a lot. The time before Christmas and the time before Easter in the United States, good luck getting a seat on an airplane, or good luck being in a big hurry when you get on an interstate, because millions of families are crisscrossing and reuniting. Well, Christmas is coming up soon again in Nigeria. Are we going to allow again for innocent people to be picked off and either murdered on the spot or held for ransom because of the accident of their birth or the strength of their faiths? That can't be. And besides all the political aspects, there's also the sleeping giant of the thousands, probably tens of thousands of American churches. A simple thing. How about pairing off a church in the States with a church in Nigeria? How about working together through technology, maybe visits, of getting to know people, not as statistics and not as just a church goer, but as a human being and another person of faith? I think if that begins to happen, people who are in charge of Nigeria will have to take note, and Americans, from Republicans to Democrats and even libertarians, are going to say, you know what, this is an issue of fundamental human rights. We're still the unique United States. We're powerful. We don't have to threaten or bully anyone. We just have to send a signal that we're paying attention. And my hope and prayer is that things can change very quickly. But I know one last thing, that if we don't address the status quo, there are going to be, God forbid, many, many more Jennifers. And then that will be not only on the kidnappers, that'll be on us.
Well, Allison, maybe you want to give us a few questions?
Yes. So this is directed to Rabbi Cooper. You touched on this slightly, but I'd love for you to expand more. Why is this relevant to the United States? What impact could this have on the U.S. citizen?
Right. So first, let me just say, for people of faith in the United States and all over the world, I think Reverend Moore knows this as part of my credo. If a Coptic Christian can pray safely in Egypt, and a Muslim can pray, safely in a Christian country, and Jews be attacked in their sin, every time a house of worship is attacked, we're all under attack. So first, it's not just altruism, is we all need both the faithful and the people who are not yet believers to identify protecting religious rights as a fundamental human right. So that's in terms of the, if you will, just the basic issue. Now, as far as the United States is concerned, you ask any American diplomat or anyone who knows about Africa, and they'll say, well, of course, Nigeria is in the middle of everything. It should be the most powerful and successful democracy in Africa. But when you take a look now at, and I think I just read a very interesting and important story in the Washington Post last week. Yes, ISIS has been defeated, thank God, in Syria and Iraq, but they're beginning to gain traction right in the neighborhood in an adjacent zip code. The U.S. knows about that, and so does the UK. I mean, there is concern, but one of the most important ways of defeating terrorists is to attack the underlying causes. Reverend Moore and I met with some experts and met just with regular people who said, well, the average person who signs up to be with one of these extremist groups or even participate in a terrorist attack, they need the money. They're poor. They don't see a way out. They see corruption, and they're just looking for a way to make a buck, and they may not really even fully understand the ideology. There are 1 million kids who belong in school. I mean, my God, there are enough US NGOs and American foreign aid that we're pouring in there, and the money from the UK. We need some transparency about where these monies are going. We need to get those kids off the street and back into school. We need to signal the government of Nigeria, you're going to have to stop the corruption. You're welcome to continue it, but if you do, you may be getting billions less in aid from around the world. So behavior modification is possible. It's not through threats. You're not asking to take the money away from Nigeria. You're insisting that the largest of the American taxpayer be invested to see to it that ISIS doesn't have a prayer in God forbid, helping to break up the most important democracy and probably the most important ally we have in that general area. So both from the ethical point of view, the human rights, the harsh realities of geopolitics, and the commitment I hope we still have to defeating the likes of ISIS on the battlefield, and more importantly, in the hearts and minds of people. There's no turning away. You cannot, if you deflect, as Facebook did today, Facebook blocked the posting of photos today of people being shot down, innocent people being shot down. They said it was fake news. Now, they since apologized and they're going to try to figure it out. But what really happened there was deflection. These are photos, these are images, these are stories that you really don't want to have to talk about. And you don't want to have to confront. Deflection leads to silence. Silence, we know at the end of the day, God forbid, what that would lead to. So this should be an issue, I'll use the term, bipartisan issue on Capitol Hill. And no matter who the president is, whatever Joe Biden did or did not do when he was VP is now irrelevant. And if it's President Trump and Secretary of State Pompeo, they've got a pretty decent track record at breaking the mold and doing things differently. They're going to need to pay some serious direct attention to this issue. And I think it is an issue and an arena that can still, we can change the course of events so that we don't have to be wringing our hands about a new ISIS using a different part of the alphabet to threaten Africa, and by the way, to threaten us.
Thank you, Rabbi Cooper. Reverend Moore, I have one for you, and that is, what can the individual person do? Rabbi Cooper talked about churches as a whole and, some groups, what they can do. What can the individual person do?
Well, the first thing is internalize it. If you're just by our common humanity, we all have a vested interest in it. As a Christian, the Bible tells me that when one member of our community suffers, it's as if everyone is suffering. Like when Jennifer talks about her faith, I didn't meet Jennifer till I went to Nigeria. We haven't seen her since we were there. But like, she's my sister. Like, we're in the same family, and I think aside from the fact that every single human being is made in the image of God, and every victim of terrorism or criminal activity, whatever their religion in Nigeria, every single one of those people is of equal value and made in the image of God. It always perplexes me that the Christian community in free countries like our country, that we ignore our brothers and sisters around the world, and this is just awful. This has to stop. Like we have to pray for people in these situations the way we hope someone would pray for us if we were in that situation. If I feared driving from my house to my kids' school, how would I pray every day on that drive? Like that's how we need to pray. But when we give to help people through organizations that we support, we need to give like we hope someone would be giving to us. And when we advocate, we need to advocate as fiercely as we hope someone would be advocating for us. And this is one of the reasons why I love the opportunity to be here tonight with Icon, because Icon has been unrelenting in their advocacy. But what's most important, aside from being unrelenting in their advocacy, is they've been factual and they provided real data. You know, there's a report on their website that you can download, some of which we cite in our book. Again, the book is called The Next Jihad, of just like incident after incident after incident in the country. You have to internalize it, and then I think whatever action you choose to take. And I really appreciate, you know, Rabbi Cooper's point about this being a bipartisan issue. Whoever represents your community in the United States, like pick up the phone and call their local office and send an email. I mean, in 2015, we eventually had unanimous declarations in the House and in the Senate saying that what was happening at the hands of ISIS in Iraq and Syria constituted genocide, an incredibly polarized and partisan time in American history. And I think the unfortunate challenge with Nigeria is all this suffering seems to be taking place in the shadows. And when I'm telling you, like more people were dying in Nigeria at the height of ISIS at the hands of terrorists than in Iraq and Syria. And when I say that, like most people don't know it. You know, there's one state in Nigeria where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of churches have just been burned to the ground. I mean, just burned to the ground, and like no one's been prosecuted, no one's in jail. I mean, it is just absolutely unbelievable. And so you've got to first of all educate yourselves. This is why, you know, read the news. Nigeria is a country. One of their national languages is English. There are tons of news outlets that are in English. It has an independent press. When you can read what's happening, most of our research in the book is from the public domain. You know, it's just from what's out there. So educate yourself, internalize what you're learning, and then whatever you do it with all your might. Pray with all your might, give with all your might, be an advocate with all of your might. And then I just will finally say, I love Rabbi's idea, you know, encouraging us Christians to have our churches adopt churches and Christian communities in Nigeria, where we can tell those stories and when we can provide practical assistance. And I keep saying, and one more thing, but let me just say one more thing. I just am so grateful for people like Jennifer, who are willing to tell their story. I mean, this just took place. She just got out earlier this year. Okay, I mean, the trauma that you heard, you know, in her story. I would not be as poised as she is telling this story. I can guarantee you. I don't know how I would be dealing with what she experienced. And people like Jennifer that are willing to break the silence and raise their voices and speak up on behalf of other people are heroes. And I think we went to Nigeria in order to learn stories to help people. And one of the things, and this has happened again and again to me as I've traveled around the world working with persecuted people, I always find myself like transformed by hearing their stories and meeting the Christians that refuse to convert, the pastors, you know, that are serving in really, really hostile and difficult situations. So those are all things that are running through my head, you know, with your question, Allison. Maybe we should take one more and we wrap.
Allison, if I can just add one quick point. There is another constituency here. Families in America and around the world have been locked up in a pandemic. In normal times, kids, teenagers, young adults are asking, can I actually make a difference? Does it make it, is there anything out there for me to do where I can actually connect and see that I can make a difference in the world? So whether you do it with a book like Next Jihad or someone's sermon or whatever, it's a good time coming up to Thanksgiving and the holidays. This is really a good time. Maybe to take one evening out, sit down with your kids, show them what's going on, unfortunately, in Nigeria. But the main goal is to give them the message, maybe if you look at the end of our book, which is, here you've got a pastor and a rabbi telling you, you individually can make a difference. That's something that our kids are not hearing right now, even if they're back in school, and I hope they are, but we're essentially locked down, and the individual sense of empowerment is seeping away from us. It's going to return. And I think this would be a great time to educate our kids as well.
Thank you, Rabbi Cooper and Reverend Moore. With the time we have left, Mr. Enada, we'd love for you to have a few words. And Jennifer, we would like for you to be able to close us out with a few words of your own to those who are listening today.
Thank you so much. It gladdens my heart when I hear people adding their voices to this cause. Well, what I would like to say is, whether US likes it or not, she has promoted religious freedom worldwide. And the fundamental principle that I've seen that has made US what it is today is religious freedom. And in a situation where you don't have religious freedom, like in Nigeria, there is no economic freedom. And also, US has been an ally to Nigeria, over $1 billion being given to Nigeria annually. And giving such money, taxpayer money, I'm paying tax here in the United States. So I don't want my tax to be misdirected. I want people to be held accountable. What are they doing with that money? Then also you look at when ISIS, Boko Haram, Fulani militant are regrouping, the ultimate target of any terrorist organization today is the United States. If Nigeria is overrun and Nigeria implodes, God forbid, Europe will be in distress, American interests will be affected. So this is actually helping Nigeria to overcome this dilemma. Is also helping the United States, because US homeland security will be affected. And it is good to prevent, because imagine what happened 9/11. If it were to be prevented, over 3,000 lives will be preserved. And also the economic implication, the military implication of what 9/11 happened. So now, if Boko Haram, ISIS combine overrun Nigeria and US becomes a target, and God forbid something happens, then the consequence is alarming. We can prevent it. And America can do many things, more than one thing at a time. She has that strength and capability. Thank you for this evening.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay. My last words are, the incidences are actually increasing. They are not reducing. From the information from my colleagues that I still left in Munguno, the roads are not accessible at all. They are being attacked 5 to 7 times in a day by this Boko Haram to collect foodstuffs and people's phones, their laptops, their clothes from them. The people that were taken after us are still not released, and they are still killing people that they pick up. So my own is, please interfere, intercede in our behalf, intercede on our behalf, pray for Nigeria, and also assist in all the little ways you can. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. If you have additional questions, please leave them in the comment field on Johnnie Moore's Facebook page. That's @Johnnie Online. And thank you for attending tonight.